Hello, my name is Ashita Chakrabarty, producer of FOSA. I have been passionately producing shows with a mission to highlight issues that need awareness, a voice, and enlightenment. My intention has always been to focus on ones that call for action. Some of the topics we've examined in the past are human trafficking, domestic violence, opioid abuse, LGBTQ youth, LGBTQ senior projects, mental health, postpartum depression, rape and recovery, child marriage, slavery, women's unity, gender equality, assimilation of immigrant women into the United States, and many more. These are just a few topics that we've brought to light, and there are many more that we must tackle as a community. Here we have a few clips of the above. We look forward to working together to examine the many more injustices in the world. Not only am I working to enlighten the difficult topics, but I'm also working towards finding a solution to the above. Working on uniting women, innovating solutions to employ the victims of domestic violence and human trafficking to regain their confidence and belief in society and humanity. Introducing successful women in society to empower, inspire, mentor as role models. I firmly believe in the power of humanity, and I believe one has to be human to serve humanity. Thank you. I'm Ashita Chakrabarty.
My name again is Peter DiMarzio. I work for Homeland Security Investigations out of Boston. The Victim Assistance Specialist. I cover the entire New England area, so that's 73,000 square miles. And the places that keep me the busiest are Boston, Providence, Manchester, New Hampshire, Portland, and every now and then Burlington, Vermont. So we're kept pretty busy. And one of the things that Sarah just said is, the risk, the cost. And I'm hoping, as of this past Thursday, that changed because we were able to, our group was able to successfully prosecute one of the largest sex trafficking rings to this date. Raymond Jeffries' case, he was actually trafficking 20 women across the country, the East Coast. And on Thursday, we had roughly 12 victims come to the U.S. courthouse to give their victim impact statements, and then the judge handed down a 30-year sentence to them. So you won't be sitting But the last 2 days, we've been tremendously busy. We've had 3-4 operations within the last 2 days involving women, involving young minors as young as 13 years of age, out in the Worcester area in brothels, down in Providence, Rhode Island, and also up in Portland, Maine. So it's not going away. If anything, we're seeing a lot more of it, unfortunately.
When I was 8 months pregnant, he was doing boxing in my stomach. I tell my daughter is in my stomach, don't beat me, beat in my back, and he started boxing in my back. And he used to give me only apple juice and V8 juice. He never allowed me to eat food. He he used to beat me and run outside of the building. And I was in coma for 48 hours. I got pulmonary embolism because of too much sugar and too much salt in my body during pregnancy. After delivery, after 3 days, I was in coma for 48 hours. Doctor said I will die, They even called the coffin to put dead body, and they asked my mother how you want to burn a dead body, or you want to cremate. But I survived the coma. I after coma I came back to life again, and I applied in Walgreens. I got job in Walgreens, luckily, and Walgreens. Then I helped me look for rooms. I got $300 apartment room, sharing room in, and I stayed with there, and I started working at Walgreens. Today I am working at CVS on weekends, and in weekdays I am taking training as a teller in the bank.
I've been graciously invited here tonight to talk about the opioid epidemic, not only in Quincy, not only in Massachusetts, but it's national. First, let me explain what an opioid is for those of you who may not know. An opioid is a prescription medication that is given for pain. And there are other opioids that are illegal substances, such as heroin. So, in talking about opioids, some examples would be morphine, heroin, OxyContin, Percocet 30s, or they're known as Perc 30s, Vicodin, etc. And in the best of all possible worlds, they're given to control pain. But unfortunately, many of these substances are highly addictive. And that is what has brought us to what the Center for Disease Control in Washington, D.C. is calling a national epidemic. Addiction is a brain disorder. When you start to abuse these substances, your brain changes. The electrical wiring, if you want to call it, in your brain changes. You just can't stop. And if you just try to stop without help, you get what is known as dope sick. So, going back to, we had two parents especially, who still are very active members in our coalition, who both of their sons were active users. Now, I also want to say that these people were solid, middle-class people. Both parents worked. Both took great care of their children. The children were given religious training, sports, you name it. The typical American child, right. Wonderful, experiences in their life. But they made bad choices. And so I would like your audience to know that these people who are addicted to these drugs, they are somebody's loved one. They are somebody's son, daughter, father, mother, sister, brother. And this is why I'm so passionate about trying to get people to understand that. They're not bad people. Yes, they've made a bad choice. They could have done something better, but they're in it now. Do we just leave them? And if you hear the stories of the moms and dads, you can't leave them alone. I defy you to leave them alone. It's too sad and too striking, and it impacts the family so much. Whether it's depression or in the entire family. I think even the data says a minimum of 7 people are impacted directly from a user's addiction. And these users themselves sometimes have made these choices that aren't so terrific because they have other issues. Many people are what we call dual diagnosis, meaning that they have other issues of their psyche, whether it's depression or any kind of anxieties, etc. Sometimes they've gotten into it legitimately by accident. There are adults who have gotten into this who have had a surgery or have had back pain or have gotten hurt on the job, and they've legitimately gotten a prescription and they become hooked. And you can become hooked because your genetics may play into it, you know, your family history.
So the LGBT Aging Project is a organization that is it's a program of the Fenway Institute at Fenway Health in Massachusetts, in Boston, and our focus is to bring cultural competency training to mainstream elder service networks and organizations to make them more aware and to make them more inclusive and of LGBT, the needs of LGBT older adults. We, instead of creating a whole new service delivery model for LGBT older adults, we just want to, we in Massachusetts, we have such a great elder service network that, you know, with the aging service access points, the councils on aging, the senior centers, it's a fantastic network. So we want to be able to make sure that they are able to do their best and to meet the needs of all people in their communities. And LGBT is one population that has just traditionally been overlooked and underserved. And the reason being, one of the main reasons being, is that this is a population, if you pause and think about what the world was like, you know, 40, 50 years ago, when these folks were coming of age in the 50s and 60s, it was not okay. It was actually not only just not okay, it was against the law in all 50 states if people were gay. So they could lose their jobs, they could lose their housing. If they had children, they could lose the custody of their children. So this population just knew fly under the radar screen, don't draw attention to themselves, not to get in any trouble. And so they went about their lives and doing just that. And some were able to form some kind of, you know, close social networks. Many were even afraid of guilty by association, so they weren't even doing that. They were just kind of going about their lives. This population is also, sadly, very estranged from their families. And I think if you think about, in terms of, you know, culturally, like, family plays such a critical role in so many cultures, and to not have that, and that came about because families just didn't know how to do. There was no such thing as PFLAG, Parents and Friends of Lesbian and Gays Everywhere. That there was no such thing. There were no support systems. So there's a lot of shame in there. People found out they had gay children or whatever. So the divide just got further and further. So they're not out to people, friends. They're not out to coworkers. They don't have family. They're just kind of flying under the radar screen. And they go about their lives, and many did the best they could, but it's when they get to be elders and they need the support. They become frail and they need support. They need elder services, but they're afraid again, even though the world is changing, even though now, you know, gay marriage is the law of the land in all 50 states, they're waiting for that shoe to drop. They're afraid that they are in their frail state that they will be discriminated on again. So our work is to work with all of these aging service access points, the elder service providers, the councils on aging, like Norma's, and to help them to be, not only just to be more culturally competent, to understand what it's like to be an older LGBT person, but also beyond that training to help do outreach, to make folks know that their senior center or their agency is welcoming, that they get it, that they're ready to serve them.
So LGB is lesbian, gay, bisexual, and then the Q and the T sometimes people are trying to figure out. So the Q actually stands for queer, which we consider those first 4 letters a sexual orientation. And then T stands for transgender, which is a gender identity. So we want to make a differentiation between what sexual orientation is and what a gender identity is. So you'll hear both, but a lot of times people now are using LGBTQT to be able to talk about the community. So DOVE stands for Domestic Violence Ended. It is a domestic violence agency in the Quincy area that serves the greater Norfolk County. We're really committed to being able to serve diverse communities and just promote safety, healing, and also understand our services as both being responsive, so meeting with clients and meeting with people who come in who've experienced domestic violence in their life, but also preventative. So we have outreach and education, and I'm actually in a position where I'm fortunate enough to do both of those things at the same time.
DOVE stands for Domestic Violence Ended. DOVE is committed to partnering with diverse communities, families, and individuals impacted by domestic violence. We promote hope, healing, safety, and social change by providing a broad range of preventive and responsive services. DOVE was established actually originally out of the Quincy Mayor's Commission on Women back in 1977, 1978. And originally the very first shelter opened on the grounds of Quincy City Hospital. And now we have, as the mission says, a broad range of services for victims and survivors, and we're also working more and more toward community education and ultimately prevention, because we would really like to prevent and end domestic and dating violence.
Programs at DOVE, and we're likely most well known for our shelter program. So we've had our shelter for about 37 years. And it's in an undisclosed location in Quincy, and that's for the safety of the families that are staying there. And so oftentimes we have people coming from all the way across the country that are seeking safety from a relationship that has been potentially physically violent, emotionally abusive. There may have been threats. This person has not allowed the relationship to end, and so oftentimes people are looking to go into hiding and are able to do that within our shelter. So we also serve many people right from this area, from Quincy and the surrounding towns, and people really are able to stay with us until they're able to find a safe place to move on to.
If you've had depression after one pregnancy, you are more likely to have it after subsequent pregnancies. And that's something women don't think about. They think, well, I've been through this once. This should be fine. And it doesn't turn out that way. And then all of those feelings of inadequacy are even bigger. And the depression gets even worse.
This man was interesting also because he had a 14-year-old stepson, and he had 2 biological children with his wife, but every incident of abuse towards his wife would start with a fight with his stepson.
Oh, no.
Because he felt like his wife was spoiling
him.
the stepson and pandering to the stepson. So he would start to discipline the stepson, and then it would turn into a shoving situation with him, and then his wife would try to intervene, and then he would start shoving and pushing her. So before he came to our program, he had at least 30 incidents like that started just like that.
Unbelievable.
And so this man completed the program, and I took him to speak to a group of battered women and people that work for a battered women's program. He was asked, one of the women asked him, what was the turning point for you? What was the thing that really made the most difference to you? And he said he remembered in the group that he was describing another incident where he had pushed his son and ended up pushing his wife, and the youngest man in the group, who was only 18 years old, he asked him a question. He said, dude, do we even like this kid? And he was
right.
He was offended. He said,
Yeah.
like, what kind of question is that? Of course I like him. He's my stepson. And then the other kid said, but does he know that you like him? Because if he doesn't know, then it doesn't count. Right?
That's true.
And so then the 18-year-old talked about how he had a stepfather, and he never felt like his stepfather liked him. And so he always made it a point to give him a hard time,
Interesting.
the rest of his life. And so that was a very helpful thing, because then we focused on the need for him to really develop more of a relationship with his stepson, to become his buddy. and to really kind of back off of trying to discipline him, to let his wife handle that, you know. And so that's what he did. He just started focusing on having a stronger relationship and taking him, you know, to sporting events and taking him on walks. And it really changed everything. It changed his relationship with his stepson. It changed his relationship with his wife. And it just was a huge starting point. But it started with an 18-year-old helping a 42-year-old.
42-year-old.
Right?
Wow.